Imagine the finale of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, where the seemingly invincible Yhwach, with his unparalleled ability to foresee the future, stands on the cusp of achieving victory. But as fate would have it, the tide of the battle had turned in a way that nobody could have predicted. Ryuken, the last pure-blooded Quincy, would make a surprise appearance, and his intervention in chapter 659 plays a pivotal role in turning the tide of the battle, by introducing us to a never-before-seen weapon called the Still Silver Arrowhead. This small but very effective weapon has a tragic backstory to it. It represents the retribution from all of the mixed-blooded Quincy who had lost their lives to empower Yhwach via the Ashvalan 9 years ago. Despite it playing such a significant role within the story, there have been heated debates amongst Bleach fans worldwide for years about this one particular plot device. Today I'm going to be diving deep into the origins, significance, as well as all of the tragic details surrounding the Still Silver Arrowhead, from the upsetting flashback of Uryu's childhood to the climactic final battle of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, which had decided the fate of Yhwach, the Quincy leader. This video promises to go over every single detail that we know about the Silver Arrow of Stillness. And be sure to stick around until the end of this video, because I'll be uncovering all of the mysteries, as well as the outcome at the end of the battle after Yhwach is defeated following the use of the Still Silver Arrowhead. So without further delay, here is my video explaining the roots of the controversial weapon which had sparked countless debates amongst Bleach fans. The Still Silver Arrowhead is actually created from the heart of a victim of Ashvalan. Within the heart of such a victim, a silver blood clot forms, which is also referred to as a silver thrombus. The arrowhead, which Ryuken was in possession of, was sourced from Uryu's mother's heart, which we see within chapter 682. The Still Silver Arrowhead nullifies the powers of the caster of Ashvalan momentarily upon making contact with their blood. Ryuken, we learn, had dissected the body of his own wife after she had fallen a victim to Ashvalan because she was a mixed-blooded Quincy. He had discovered the silver thrombus within her heart, which he had then fashioned into the Still Silver Arrowhead in anticipation for a future battle against the Quincy leader Yhwach, who was promised to return via the legend of the Quincy Emperor song. The Still Silver Arrowhead has a very significant role within the narrative because of its ability to counteract Yhwach's power, the Almighty. This formidable Shrift ability allows Yhwach to perceive and modify the future. It's a truly broken ability which almost spells the end of the Bleach world as we know it. During the final battle against Yhwach, Uryu actually uses the Still Silver Arrowhead against Yhwach, successfully piercing him with it, as Yhwach's powers are momentarily suspended, rendering him unable to predict or change the future. This had granted Ichigo a very brief window of opportunity in order to deliver a critical final blow against Yhwach. Consequently, the Still Silver Arrowhead becomes instrumental in the defeat of Yhwach, as it had offered the heroes a rare opportunity to triumph over a seemingly undefeatable opponent. Uryu, who had fired the Still Silver Arrowhead, is himself a mixed-blooded Quincy who resides within Karakura Town, and within the present timeline of the Bleach story, he works as a doctor in Karakura Hospital. He represents one of the last few surviving Quincy's within the human world, and he descends from a lineage of Quincy's who in fact have distanced themselves from Yhwach and his underlings, as they follow the more traditional ways of the Quincy and reject Yhwach's teachings of having power bestowed upon them. Uryu's father, Ryuken Ishida, holds the position of director at Karakura Hospital. He is in fact the last surviving pure-blooded Quincy, and he is also the son of Soken Ishida. While Uryu ended up infiltrating Yhwach's army and earning a Shrift ability of his own, Ryuken on the other hand remains as one of the last Quincy who adheres strictly to the traditional teachings of the Quincy, and as far as I know doesn't have a Shrift ability of his own. This now brings us to the leader of the Quincy, Yhwach, who is revered as a god amongst the Quincy. Many of his followers are willing to die for him without hesitation, in order for him to regain his powers. After a time span of 991 years, Yhwach had used a special ability called Ashvalan, which had allowed him to retrieve or relocate Quincy powers from mixed-blooded Quincy. Many had fallen victim to Yhwach's holy selection. Uryu's mother, Kanai Katagiri, a mixed-blooded Quincy who we are introduced to during the Everything But the Rain flashback arc was one of its victims. In chapter 536, we see Isshin reveal to Ichigo details about his mother's past and how he had first met Masaki. He also hints at the somber truth of why Masaki had met her demise. Intriguingly, the circumstances of Masaki's death are actually linked to Uryu's mother's death. On the day that Masaki was confronted by Grand Fisher and had met her end, Kanai Katagiri had also collapsed. She passed away 3 months later, and the common link between these deaths is Ashvalan, the systematic selection which was carried out by Yhwach. Now in chapter 659, we also get a brief flashback of Ryuken performing an autopsy on his wife's body. This memory is especially distressing for a young Uryu who as a child was traumatized by the sight of his father examining his deceased mother. He was struggling to understand the reasoning behind Ryuken's actions. What I have to commend Kubo on is Ryuken's expression within this panel. It is so subtle, but the depth of pain and sadness that he must feel is conveyed masterfully within this art. As a parent, he cannot begin to justify this operation in a way that will make sense to his son. In the next panels, we see just how traumatized Uryu was by this encounter. In a past conversation with Ichigo, Uryu states confidently that he no longer has any intention of becoming a doctor. This sentiment stemming from the fact that his father, who was a doctor, for some reason was compelled to cut up the body of his dead wife. So it's no wonder that he wanted nothing to do with such a profession. Now, what was the significance of this particular autopsy scene? A notable detail from chapter 659 is the discovery of a silver blood clot in Kanai Katagiri's heart. This clot, like I had mentioned earlier, is as a result of Ashvalan. Now this is what had essentially led to her death. Ryuken was able to deduce, maybe from the books of Ryuken Ishida, that the Still Silver Arrowhead would be able to momentarily halt Yhwach's powers. This brief flashback highlights that the Still Silver Arrowhead was subtly foreshadowed within the Bleach story, ensuring that its introduction wasn't just a form of plot armor or a sheer twist of fate. In order to comprehend Ryuken's motives behind the autopsy of his wife, it's important for us to contextualize it around his involvement in the final moments of the 1000-year Blood War arc. In chapter 674, we see Ryuken and Isshin finally appear on the battlefield as they arrive within Waterworld, the very short-lived new headquarters of the Quincy, which was constructed on top of the royal palace from the ruins of Silburn. The two of them enter through a Gate of the Sun. This prompts Ryuken to state that this is one of the only times that he is grateful for his father's knowledge about Quincy tools. Ryuken Ishida had after all utilized these portals in order to escape from hollows in the world of the living. In chapter 682, Uryu runs up a flight of stairs and he is shocked to see his father accompanied by Isshin. Ryuken states that he came to deliver the arrowhead to his son. He explains that every member of the Quincy who falls victim to Ashvalan perishes with a small clot that is formed within their heart. Uryu suddenly has a quick flashback to the time when his father had operated on his mother. Ryuken reveals that the arrowhead is forged from the silver that he had found within the heart of Kanai Katagiri. The Still Silver Arrowhead is thus quite symbolic in nature. It not only represents the key to end this final battle, but it also symbolizes justice for all of the mixed-blooded Quincy who tragically lost their lives to the man who had claimed to be their father, but instead had forfeited their lives in order to gain power from them. Following this, a very rare father and son interaction occurs between Ryuken and Uryu as he hands over to him the arrowhead, emphasizing that Uryu should be the one to release it. While some fans could argue that Kubo characterizes Ryuken as a vengeful husband, I view this moment very differently. I see Ryuken here as a hero, a physician who leveraged available resources in order to prevent further Quincy suffering from Ashvalan. And while Uryu was temporarily traumatized by seeing his father perform that autopsy on his mother, this trauma dissipates very quickly when he understands that his father is allowing him to take revenge for the death of his mother. There have been countless debates amongst fans who believe that the Still Silver Arrowhead, which had contributed to the defeat of Yhwach, was some sort of a random plot device. However, upon closer inspection, the Silver Arrow of Stillness brims with thematic richness. After all, it was crafted from Uryu's mother's remains, a consequence of Ashvalan. It embodies poetic justice. The irony is that Yhwach, who had spent most of the final arc gaining more power by stealing it from his underlings, he ended up being defeated by the consequence of the very power that he had used to regain what he had lost 1,000 years ago. The Still Silver Arrowhead serves as an ultimate karma for the actions of Yhwach. It's the ultimate symbol of revenge, thus bringing an end to his story which had all started from his selfish desires. Within chapter 684, Uryu fires the arrowhead into Yhwach. During one of his most vulnerable moments, we get an echo of Ryuken's words, as he sheds some light on how Yhwach will meet his demise. He states that the silver which forms within the heart of a victim of Ashvalan is referred to as the silver of stillness. By mixing this with the blood of the one who had cast Ashvalan, it interferes with all of that individual's abilities. And the detail that you all need to pay attention to is that it nullifies Yhwach's powers for a brief instant. As the arrowhead penetrates Yhwach, the manga panel vividly depicts his shock, as he was entirely unprepared for such an unexpected turn of events. With his powers suspended, this means that Yhwach no longer has the capacity to anticipate or alter the future, which gives Ichigo the perfect opening to land a critical, decisive blow. You may be wondering, how is it possible that Yhwach's Shrift ability, the Almighty, was unable to foresee such a catastrophic outcome? Well, it turns out that the Still Silver Arrowhead was not the only key component required to defeat Yhwach. In another video on my channel where I break down the final battle of the 1000-year Blood War arc, I speak about all of the different aspects which had contributed to the defeat of Yhwach. One major oversight was Yhwach mistaking a vision of the future for a dream. This is where we see Ichigo in his original Shikai form, which foreshadows how Ichigo defeats Yhwach with his final decisive blow. But of course, none of this would have been possible without the Still Silver Arrowhead. There are a lot of disappointing aspects about the finale of the 1000-year Blood War arc. It's undeniable that these parts of the story were rushed. The Still Silver Arrowhead ended up being very quickly introduced into the narrative, and then additionally Ryuken's sudden appearance and then disappearance into the background makes me believe that Kubo had a lot of ideas that he just wasn't able to incorporate into the story, which is why we are getting so many anime exclusive scenes within the all-new 1000-year Blood War arc anime. I am very confident that the story surrounding the Still Silver Arrowhead, as well as Ryuken's role into the final arc, will be expanded upon. While I can justify the utilization of the Still Silver Arrowhead via the flashback that we received of a younger Uryu witnessing his father operating on his mother, I can understand the criticism from fans who believe that this flashback is conveniently placed into the story, but I do think that the anime has an opportunity to provide us with a bit more context by expanding upon this flashback, and there is already promise that this is going to happen because in comparison to the manga, Uryu's role has already been expanded upon significantly within the anime. If anything, I just want to see more interactions between Uryu and Ryuken, and possibly Ryuken actually having a role within some of the final battles that occur towards the end of the story arc. In summary, a lot of fans criticize the Still Silver Arrowhead, dubbing it as a rather convenient plot device, while through its introduction into the story we get to learn a bit more about the inner workings of the ability Ashvalan. Even I can agree that its overall implementation into the narrative leaves a lot to be desired. Fans felt that the story's conclusion was rushed, and the Still Silver Arrowhead unfortunately falls victim to the fast pacing of the final arc. All that we can really do is hope that the anime expands upon these rushed aspects of the 1000-year Blood War arc finale. Now we've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your thoughts on how the Still Silver Arrowhead was implemented into the story? Has this video helped you to understand the role that it plays within the final battle against Yhwach? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention in the video, then definitely let me know in the comments. I've been wanting to make a video on the Still Silver Arrowhead for such a long time because of the pivotal role that it plays leading up to the demise of Yhwach. I look forward to seeing all of you continue the discussion in the comments, and let me know what are some of the additions that you want made to Core 3 and Core 4 of the anime, which hopefully will shed some more light on these aspects of the story which were rushed. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.